Ah. There's nothing quite like building just the right maze. Artfully placing towers. Seeing everything come together and working perfectly. It's relaxing, you know? Zen-like. And Sanctum 2 is hey, can you tone it back with the music? Holy fucking shit! What am I supposed to do? Once upon a time, Sanctum 1 came into being, a tower defense game that lets you make your own mazes and then run around as a little guy shooting things as well. Now we have Sanctum 2, and there are some key differences. Sanctum 1 gave you a lot of resources, allowing you to make the exact type of maze you want and fill it out fully. It got pretty spammy, but that was part of the charm, you know? Okay, hang on a sec. There we go. Sanctum 2 experiments by going in the other direction, and makes resources relatively scarce, putting emphasis on trying to place the right buildings in clever places. Coffee Stain Studios. Looks like they went on to make Goat Simulator, and oh shit, Deep Rock Galactic, that was you? I didn't notice this bit until after I beat the game. Valheim too, damn, they're doing good for themselves. Oh, by the way, all I played is the base game. I don't have any DLC, perks, characters, or towers. There doesn't seem to be like a Game of the Year or whatever edition that includes all the DLC. You have to get it all separately. But I'm sure if the game goes on sale, I'm willing to bet the DLC will too. Before you start a map, you get to choose your character, your weapons, your towers, and your perks. And you can only use those for the rest of the map. I've liked to pick a guy with a shotgun. He gets damage bonus for being close to enemies. Progress is shared between characters, so don't worry about that. You build your maze, and then you shoot guys in 2 different phases. Nothing outlandish. Again, since you have a limited amount of resources, you gotta be real particular about what towers you build and where. It's almost like solving a puzzle. At least when playing by yourself. If playing co-op, the money doesn't get split, so it's multiplied for each person. The health of the enemies gets increased to match, though. Now that I think about it, if you have a full team, it probably does get just as crowded as Sanctum 1, huh? Oh yeah, this game is co-op. Oh, and you can't just make a death box either, cause every now and then, a certain enemy will spawn, and you won't want your towers bunched up together for them. The weapons can be neat. They all have an alt fire. Sometimes they feel a bit hard to handle though. I do wish the controls were a bit snappier. Do you know that kind of feeling when you're playing a first-person game and they kind of value head bobbing or animations more than nice movement? But anyway, you get 2 weapons, and they reload by cooling down, so you fire all of one weapon, switch them, and fire all of the other and switch back. It's a nice little dance. Standout enemies include the Whaler, because you can bait them into stopping and shooting instead of running through the maze. But the trade-off is now you have something shooting at you, and you gotta dive and dodge out of the way. It adds gameplay. There's the Bubblehead, and I mean, just look at him. He's great. It's immune to all damage except for its eyes there, and it exists to bait your towers into attacking it instead of others, so you gotta prioritize killing it yourself. Enemies that I despise include the Hoverers, which are immune to all damage from the front, so you gotta get up behind them, and oh whoops, they have a giant AoE attack that shoots you all across the map when you get close. Oh, and it doesn't have a cooldown. I sure hope you don't play a character that's designed to get up close. Hey. Hey! At the very least, they still have to go through your maze despite being able to fly. Unlike the Flyers, which ignore your maze and pelt you with ranged attacks that slow you down and have way too much health for what they are, especially if you up the difficulty. You level up as you play the game, and levels unlock new weapons, new towers, and new perks. They're all side grades, so you don't need to grind out ranks, and it feels paced out enough where you get to experiment with everything, and get to terms with it all. If you ever want to reset your progress, like if you're coming back to the game after a while, after only trying it for a bit, you do need to go through your files and disable your cloud save in Steam or whatever equivalent, so I wish there was something for that. At any time, even from the very beginning, you can turn on modifiers to make the game harder. I just look at having all 5 on as hard mode, cause in order to fill out the map completion you gotta have all 5 on at once, so you might as well have all 5 on at once. They're pretty standard. Enemies have more health, hit harder, go faster, things like that. There is one enemy that goes absurdly fast though with that modifier. The 5th modifier, however, is a bit more in depth. Your towers sell for only half as much as they cost, instead of all of it, and if you die, you can't respawn until the end of the wave. This should be a pretty thoughtful limit. You have to be extra careful in how you place your buildings, and you have to be extra careful not to die in the wave. But there's a couple of things. If you misclick or place something down by mistake, even if you're in the same build phase that you just placed it in, there's no take-backsies. You've just lost half of what it cost to build. And remember, resources are so sparse that if it happens, well, that's it then, and you gotta restart the map. Then with the no respawning, it certainly keeps you more on edge, but you're such a big part of your defenses that if you do bite it, well that's it then, and you've gotta restart. Some deaths do feel pretty cheap, and there's plenty of opportunities to just fall off the map. Oh, by the way, getting stuck in nooks and crannies apparently happens often enough that when you pause the game there is a dedicated suicide button. So there's that too. If I could be an armchair game dev for a moment, I would suggest that instead of until the end of the round, the modifier would increase the respawn timer from 10 seconds to maybe 20 or 30. Oh, and letting you refund buildings in the same phase. Hard mode exemplifies the action and the puzzle-like figuring out of the game the most. It can feel like you're thrown waves of enemies that are just impossible to handle, but picking yourself up and changing how you approach the situation little by little and eventually overcoming what seemed so impossible. It's a good feeling. Makes you say, God, I'm so cool. Although there are almost no hints about what exactly you should change, or what you're doing wrong, or what you might do better. It can be frustrating. Makes you scream out, what am I supposed to do? At least until you give up and look at what the best loadout is. But to cap off gameplay, solo and co-op are 2 different experiences, and I recommend both. There will still be a handful of people playing, at least in the evening. Art. The art can be a little iffy, but it's charming in some places. I like the designs of the tech. It's big and bulky. Like a fusion of retro futurism and modern futurism. Also, God, just look at the size of this rocket launcher. It's what you used to use before you had those dang iPods. The enemies also have a cool look to them, and they're all very readable. I always knew exactly what I was fighting, and was able to adjust my strategy right as I see them. The effects could have used some more flair. Everything is very muted. Maybe it gets crazy when there's more people to build more towers, but solo there's this nothing out of the ordinary kind of feeling. The UI is equally serviceable. It just shows what it needs to without flair. But I do appreciate the map that shows the enemy path as you build, as well as color codes the level of towers. Plus, if the core gets damaged, there's a little pop-up, so that's nice. The music is equally serviceable. It does a decent job of enticing the right mood in each phase, but I recommend just playing your own music, something actiony. The sounds are pretty nice. The weapons mostly sound real punchy, and the enemy death rattles are good too. Paired with the actiony music you picked out, it's a pretty cool experience. Plus, if there's a bar being filled or drained, there's, of course, a rising or descending tone. Things like that. The story is almost non-existent. Like, I get it. It's like foreplay with the prostitute. We both know why we're here. It's told entirely through loading screens, and it's mostly just an excuse to go to different environments. But I feel like there could have been something more. Maybe taking those loading screen comics a bit more seriously, or dialogue that could happen in-game. I'm not a story guy myself, but this is just a poor showing. So, here's the sell the game is making. You get a tower defense, first-person shooter. It's got pretty nice action. It's also got that puzzle feeling, makes you go, aha! Makes you feel like you used both your wits and your skill to succeed what seem like impossible challenges, and the sound design is nice. The bad is that there can be cheap deaths that waste a bit of time. It can also be frustrating to figure out, and the music and art can be subpar. Small aside, but when I tab out and back in, it's like the frames have to accelerate back up to what it usually is. Which, honestly, I'm wondering why more games don't do that, considering what's used to run them.